Welcome to another episode of OG55. We are doing yet again another reaction video from the amazing friend of the channel, Mr. Hey Bricky. We are breaking it down up next on OG55. Let's get it. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. We are reacting to a Hey Bricky video today. One of our favorite things to do. He makes amazing content that gets our imagination, our juices flowing. George, I know where your mind is at. Not like that, brother. Creative juices flowing, bro. Creative juices flowing. George, it is good to have you back, bro. You had a cruise sandwich, from what I understand, 2 in a row.
I did. I was on the Disney Fantasy for the 7-night Caribbean cruise, and I just got off the Wish for a 4-night Bahamian cruise, and it was really great. It was fun. It was nice being back on the Wish. Got an extra night out of it, and but I also want to say thoughts and prayers go out to all the people of Florida
Yes.
that got impacted by Hurricane Helena, for the fatalities and the housing, everybody that lost someone or something. Our hearts go out to you. So I just wanted to just say that.
Absolutely. We are praying for you. We are thinking of you, for everybody that's been impacted, even the pets, because the pets are family. And a lot of times in these hurricanes and things like that, a lot of pets are they get lost and they can't find their families again, or they die, or whatever it is. But praying for the people, the pets, like you said, George, everybody involved. It's a terrible situation over there. So yeah, hopefully everyone is staying safe. But George, if you could let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, not known for how long, at Disney George.
Me too, man. I'm telling you, everyone's jumping ship. Everyone is jumping ship. This it's crazy, dude. We did a video the other day with Seymour and Ebba about X, and it's just a total mess, bro. It's a mess. So we'll see. We'll see how long we're on it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to delete my account, but I might just switch over to other platforms and just not use Twitter that much anymore,
Exactly. Also, you can find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano.
Oh, no.
And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And really quick, I just have to say, I know there hasn't been no Citrus Corners out yet. It's just kind of been light on the Disney news, but I have a feeling once the new year comes of 2025, when we start getting those construction dates and everything starting to kind of fill out for the projects at Walt Disney World, there's definitely going to be more Citrus Corner shows on the horizon for sure.
Yep. I can hear them. They're on the horizon. There they are. And real quick before we get started, you said sticky. The lovely women of Kiss of Life. Yes. The sticky girls. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in. This is from the one and only Hey Bricky. Fantastic content creator, friend of the channel. Make sure you follow, subscribe to him, show him all the love. We feature a lot of his work here on OG55 because we love and respect what he does over there. George, this video was Disneyland Forward's start date secretly revealed. Okay, so we're gonna break this down like we always do, man. You know how we do it here on the channel. I'm gonna play it. George, if there's anything you want me to stop at, just let me know, okay?
Let's get it.
Let's get it.
With Disney's ambitious $2.5 billion expansion of the Disneyland Resort on the horizon, many are curious, myself included, when will we know this project has officially begun? In 2017, Disney would start construction on the Pixar Piles parking garage, because in 2019, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge would be opening up for guests. So in this particular example, we see Disney building a new parking garage just to keep up with what they believe the demand would be for an entirely new land. the biggest expansion in the history of Disneyland. But what this illustrates is that Disney's parking expansions are always related to theme park expansions. Disney makes the move in the parking space to adjust what they're doing inside of the theme park space.
Yes.
So just like Pixar Palace Parking Garage supported the expansion of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, could we see the future of Disneyland Forward attached to another major park?
See, this is why I love Bricky, man. We got the aerial shots. We're deep diving into this stuff, man. We're getting into the Eastern Gateway. I love it. Now, mind you, everybody at home, this is the first time I've seen this video. This is how we usually do it. I usually don't watch them in advance, but the Italiano usually does. So he's seen these, or he's seen this video. I have not. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting dynamic for sure.
And Bricky actually appreciates that too.
Yeah, he did tell us that he likes how we both kind of like one watches and one doesn't.
Yes.
How parking and expansion go hand in hand at the Disneyland Resort. But friends, before Disneyland Forward can begin, there is a bunch of infrastructure projects that have to first kick off. So as we do on this channel, if we want to predict the future, the best way to do that is by studying the past. And today we're going to look at previous construction projects, the reasons why they showed up at the Disneyland Resort, and how long these projects took to complete. Looking at these projects will help us better predict the future of the Disneyland Resort and the future of Disneyland Forward. And Mickey and Friends was built so that DCA could show up, because DCA took over the old Disneyland parking lot. Our first case study shows...
Real quick, and it's totally off topic. This is something that I wish Disney would address somehow, some way. When that platform is up for World of Color, it is the biggest eyesore, bro. It looks like a rusted junkyard sitting out there in the middle of the lagoon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, it's such bad show. There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, especially if, you know, if park operations are going on. Yeah, it really is. It's ugly. It's distasteful. It's unlike Disney, you know, to do something like that, just to have it like just sitting up there, especially if it was something like that was very subtle. Like if the platform like came up like partial way, but you couldn't see it under the water, but you can maybe see like the nozzles of the fountains, you know, then I can maybe understand.
Like a Bellagio kind of situation.
Yeah.
Or it's like, it's kind of...
When you bring the whole thing up like that, it's very tacky.
It looks terrible. It really does.
Us a direct correlation to removing parking, building a garage, building new entertainment. And Mickey and Friends would signal a new massive chapter in the story of Disneyland, where it would become a multi-day park, a multi-day experience, and really transitioning away from the idea of being a theme park, but to being a full-fledged resort. And it all started with Mickey and Friends. The Mickey and Friends parking structure took a little over 2 years for Disney to complete. And at time of completion, this was the biggest parking garage in the world. Then Mickey and Friends would get a neighbor.
Biggest parking garage in the world. Would you say that's some big Mick energy, George?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. But it's also too what we've discussed on this topic many times, and you know, you and I have mentioned it. Bricky has now mentioned it like multiple times on his video, and that in order for Disneyland Forward to move forward with anything that is involving expansion of the parks, they have to get the parking infrastructures done first, because everything that is going to be included with those park expansions right now are parking lots, and they can't touch them.
Yeah, exactly.
When the Pixar Pals would show up and open in 2019. And in just a little over a year's time, the Pixar Pals parking garage that's directly behind me was built. So there would be enough parking to handle what Disney thought was going to happen with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, adding over 5,000 parking spaces to the Disneyland Resort and giving them enough capacity to handle the big audiences that they were anticipating showing up. And both of these parking structures represent the relationship between the city of Anaheim and Disneyland. And knowing that Disneyland Forward has been voted for approval means that we could anticipate something like one of these structures, or a mega structure as big as both of them, showing up in the near future. as Disneyland Forward represent the city of Anaheim's biggest chance of growth over the next decades. So looking at the timelines of both Pixar Pals and Mickey and Friends and tying them together to what major expansions in the park that created each of these parking garages should give us a little indication of what to anticipate next. Now, because we've looked into Disneyland's past and drawn a straight line from new parking structures to new theme park developments, now let's pivot over to figure out what has to happen to get Disneyland Forward started. So to get the clear picture of when we could anticipate when Disneyland Forward is going to begin, well, the math will show us that all of that lies on the plot of land directly behind Tomorrowland.
Yep.
This will be the indication that Disneyland Forward has officially began once we see movement on the eastern side of the Disneyland Resort. Now, many of you that have been tracking the progress of Disneyland's growth are going to shut this idea down because, as we all know, they tried to build something over on the eastern side of the park once before, and it got shut down because residents weren't happy that they felt like Disney was icing out local businesses. However,
now here's the thing, before we continue with that, I have a two-prong opinion on this, right? My first opinion on that whole situation with Disney icing out the businesses, I get it. If you're a business, if you're the McDonald's or the IHOP or whatever other businesses over there on Harbor, I understand why you would be concerned or upset that Disney would build a bridge over Harbor, bypassing your business, right? I understand where these businesses are coming from. It sucks. At the same time, though, is Disney obligated to make sure that these other businesses are chugging along? Is it Disney's obligation to alter their resort plans to make sure the McDonald's is doing well? I don't think that's their responsibility. Look, I mean, I get it. It sucks. I get it. It would be sad to see anyone lose their job. It would be sad to see any of those businesses shut down. But I just think it's like, I felt like at that time I felt like there was almost like a sense of entitlement to these businesses. Like, well, we're here and you owe it to us, Disney, to keep us rolling in dough.
And I'm sorry, no one is going to go down Harbor and Catella just to go to a Denny's or a McDonald's. If they're going to go to Denny's and McDonald's, it's because they're there for Disneyland.
Right. So they're kind of leeching off of the resort, which is fine. They have every right to do that. I understand that. It's good business. You have a McDonald's or you have an IHOP right next to the resort. It's good business. But that doesn't mean that you're entitled to that forever because you've enjoyed the benefit of it. Disney's in the business of making money for Disney. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead, George.
And two, now the only way that Disney kind of stuck their foot in their mouth, in a sense, was they kind of had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder as well, where it was like, okay, we're Disney, so, we're going to get X, Y, and Z done at that time. So I love how they kind of took a little bit of a back seat when they tried to go this for Ron 2, to try to get Disneyland Forward approved. I mean, even though the first time it wasn't titled Disneyland Forward, but this way they were a little bit humbled about it, of trying to get these businesses and locals and the city of Anaheim on their side, rather than just kind of like come in like the big guy on the block, so to speak.
Yes, and that's why I said earlier I have a two-pronged opinion, because that was my second part of this opinion, where even though they're not entitled to help these businesses out, I'm glad that they did work with them and kind of, had this sort of good neighbor, mentality, and worked with these businesses and worked with the city. I think that's a good thing. But my overall gripe, though, was back then, I just felt like a lot of these businesses were like, yeah, we've been leeching off of Disney for years, and Disney owes it to us to keep that gravy train going. Well, they don't, not really. Disney's not responsible for all y'all. You know what I'm saying? So, but I am glad at the end of the day that they did work something out, because you do not want hostility necessarily either. So, yeah. But interesting situation, though. Interesting dynamic. We did so many videos on that topic back in the day. It was funny.
That just isn't the case anymore. A huge part of Disneyland Forward was Disney doing tons of research, tons of studies, proving not only to the citizens of Anaheim, but to the elected officials of Anaheim that they could build something over on the eastern side of the resort that would be beneficial not only to the corporation, but to the community. So a big part of Disneyland Forward was making sure that all of the hurdles and obstacles that squashed this in the past would be resolved, giving Disney the ability to build the crucial part of Disneyland Forward. Got to have a spot for those cars. So realistically, the start date for Disneyland Forward is when we see dirt start moving on the east side of Harbor, and the Eastern Gateway parking structure is beginning to get built. I don't anticipate any movement until this begins. And when completed, this parking garage will have more parking spaces than Mickey and Friends and Pixar Pals combined.
What? Okay.
That's over.
That's wild. That I did not know. Or maybe I did know, I just forgot. I'm not really sure, but really?
I don't think we really like focused on that. Like in our minds, we're just thinking, okay, it's a new parking structure, but at the same time, that would make sense now that it's brought up, because if you're going to get rid of multiple parking lots throughout surrounding the resort, it has to have that amount that would hold all those cars in one specific infrastructure.
I mean, I'm just surprised because I guess, I don't know, spacing wise, like I just feel like, wow, more than Mickey and Friends and Pixar combined. That's a lot. That's a lot of cars. That's interesting. That's fascinating. That's good though. We need it. That's awesome.
15,000.
Also, did you notice what OG did over here, everybody? I smashed that like button. If you're watching a Hey Bricky video, you better smash that like button. I'm telling you right now.
Parking spaces, which is
over 15,000 parking spaces.
Disneyland Forward and the expansion of Disneyland and DCA, but also, this is the important part and the exciting part, a brand new theme park, as well as removing the buses and drop-off point from the Esplanade, because all of that will live below the parking garage.
Now you and I have gone through this bus load unload area countless times walking back to the hotel, right? Mm-hmm. It's crazy. You wouldn't think, but this is a sizable area.
It is.
I mean, it's a good chunk of land. Like obviously you're not going to build like a whole theme park here or nothing crazy like that. But I mean, in terms of like an expansion for like DCA, it's a good chunk of land. It really is. You can extend it out at least several acres, you know? And if they use this land for, let's say Avatar moves in, you know, to the Hollywood land area, and they use this bus load unload area for maybe even just the show building for the big boat ride or something, you know, I think that could work. But yeah, it's a good size area. When you really walk through and you really take a look around, it's decent.
Because
especially like when you especially like when you connect it onto the back end of the backlot area.
That's what I'm saying. It's a good size in and of itself. You probably couldn't do too much with it if it was like an isolated project. But in terms of like an addition to the park that already exists, it's a good chunk of land for sure. That's why I'm saying if Pandora goes into Hollywood land and you utilize some of this property right here, this bus load unload area, you have a lot of room between that.
It is a lot of room. I just can't.
I can't envision it.
I can't see Pandora right there. I know a lot of people are saying it's going into Hollywood land in the backlot area. I just don't see it. I can't.
I can't either. And I think it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say optical illusion, but it's a little deceiving just because we have all these big buildings and sound stages you can see right here, right? So there's this like sense of like it being smaller than it really is.
And I think too, what's throwing it off for me as well is Pandora is a very natural, organic looking kind of land with a lot of plants, and now it's going to have a lot of water incorporated because it's going to be based off of like The Way of Water and the proceeding films after it. So it's like when you have a big body of water that's going to hold that e-ticket, I can't see it here. But then again, I'm only going by what I'm actually physically looking at right now. See, when they dig up everything and they block everything off, it's like, then you look at it and you're like, oh my God, that was a bus load unload area.
Yeah, it'll make sense once. It's just hard because I think that there's something so radically different than what we're going to get potentially what we're potentially, again, Pandora going here is still just a rumor, you know?
Right.
But the Hollywood backlot is so radically different than Pandora. It's just hard to wrap your brain around it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's fascinating. I'm telling you that, I mean, if they do that and they get rid of Hollywoodland and it becomes Pandora, that changes DCA, like the whole park.
The whole park.
The whole feel of the park, the whole thing. I mean, it's wild.
Will no longer exist. So you'll either park on the east or the west, and then the decision of where you go is up to you from there. Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying today's video where we're looking at the past of Disneyland so we can better predict its future. If you're having a great time, how about you predict your future by following along with Hey Bricky and subscribing to the channel.
You heard the man.
It is the easiest, freest way to make sure that I keep showing up with 3 videos every week to help you look into the past of Disneyland so we can better predict where it's going in the future. Thank you so much for signing up to Hey Bricky. I appreciate you showing up today, and I hope you're having fun with today's video. Now back to what we're breaking down. When's a shovel going in the ground? So not only does progress start on the eastern side of the Disneyland Resort, but that's also where any delays might begin as they're trying to dial in and get the plans in the city on board for what's going to be built over there, because this parking garage is going to be massive. So what we know about Disneyland Forward right now is pretty limited. But there is one thing that Josh D'Amaro said at D23 2024 in the Horizons theme park announcements. There's one thing that he said, and he went out of his way to say it. The construction on Coco would begin in 2026.
Right.
This made me wonder, did we just suddenly hear a much bigger announcement than a project start date? Could this date indicate something much, much more than just Coco showing up at the Disneyland Resort?
Okay, now mind you, I haven't seen this video yet, so I might be jumping the gun here. So I want to kind of maybe predict where he's going, if that's okay. I kind of want to see. I kind of want to, and this is kind of what we talked about, the 2026 start date for Coco. We talked about this, where it kind of implies that it's a Disneyland Forward project because they need to wait for the Eastern Gateway to be built. So they're accounting for the gateway to be built, and then they can start Coco. So if that's the case, and that's why they're waiting until 2026 to start Coco, Coco will show up in some land that is currently taken up by Disneyland Forward expansion. So whether it be the Symbol lot or the bus load unload area that we just looked at, that's my theory. George, you've seen the video. Am I off base? And where Bricky's going with this?
You're actually not. And also, we're going to be there's going to also be another Bricky reaction video we're going to be doing as well. That actually even ties into what you're saying as well.
Interesting. All right, here we go.
And the announcement of when they're going to begin construction on the Coco themed family boat ride is significant, because it's the one date that gives us a clear indication on what Disney is planning on doing with the future of the timeline of the Disneyland Resort, and specifically DCA. I'm anticipating that the Coco family boat ride will have lots of Disney's top-notch technologies, and it will push family boat ride experience further than what we've seen in the past. I can't imagine they would put a cheap clone in when it's landing at DCA at such a pivotal time. The park is running out of space, and everything that gets put in needs to be precious.
Thank you.
And I think they've chosen an appropriate property to really go all out and flex what a family boat ride can be in the 2020s. Historically, when Disney opens new attractions, they use this as a moment to display new innovations and technology integrated into one fan experience. Like when we saw Rise of the Resistance show up in 2019 at Disneyland, it showed lots of different ride techniques all stitched together in the first time ever. Therefore, Disneyland Forward projects will be using up some of Disney's most precious land. They know they have to deliver with some of their most ambitious projects for the long-term growth of the Disneyland Resort. And most Disney fans, such as myself, anticipate that Disneyland Forward will bring more of these type of innovative attractions. Now, when we look at more global trends with Disney parks, and we see the most immersive and interactive attractions popping up, they all have one major component in common. The type of attractions that seem to be pushing the boundaries of what Disney's capable of and guest expectations are the type of attractions that all seem to pop up when Disney converts raw space to theme park space, which what gets me excited about potential parking garages coming is what that means when the space behind me is no longer parking space, but theme park space belonging to Disneyland.
Oh, and that's really true. And that's what I love about Brickey is he's very optimistic at looking at things that may seem insignificant to a normie, but for us being like the Disney nerds that we are, when we look at a parking structure, we're not just looking at, oh, this is where all the cars are going to go. It's like, okay, this is significant to the fact of that we're getting rid of the parking lots in order to alleviate room for future theme park expansion. So it's like, so when we see this parking structure, we're like, it's the Holy Land. It's the saving grace.
Yeah, where a normie would look at that and go, another parking structure. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? But for the nerds like us, we see the bigger implications of that, you know?
Actually the home of something that might resemble a Fantasy Springs domestically. That could happen right behind us at some point and be a huge compliment to the Disneyland Hotel. Stand in the Fantasy Tower and having a view into the magic and into the fantasy. But if you notice what's there right now, it's cars. Got to find a home for those cars before the future can show up. Because all of the promises of the future are directly tethered into the infrastructure to find appropriate parking for Disney guests. Doubling the size of parking with a parking garage over on the eastern side that is big as both of the parks behind me combined, that gets us into a spot where everywhere where you see a car is currently in play to become part of the theme park experience.
Now, here's the thing. I want to touch upon this. We've talked about it quite a bit here on the channel. Brickey just touched upon it. A Fantasy Springs style land in these Disneyland Forward expansion pads.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. At face value, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, well, Fantasy Springs or something similar to that would be more representative or more indicative of a Disneyland expansion, right?
Right.
I kind of have the same problem I have with a Fantasy Springs coming to Disneyland that I have with Frozen Land coming to Disneyland, in that it feels very redundant. It feels like another Fantasyland. Like, these are properties that belong in Fantasyland. So to make it a whole other area with basically essentially the same kind of IP just feels like a total redundancy to me. You know what I'm saying? So what I would do, if we're going to change the theme to California Adventure, which is the rumor, I mean, the rumor is that it will be something else. It will be maybe Disney Cinematic Adventure or whatever when Pandora moves in. If they're going to change DCA's theme to Cinematic Adventure, I would put that Fantasy Springs over in DCA, because now it's not redundant. Now DCA has their version of Fantasyland. You know,
and that's why it makes sense when they put the Fantasy Springs over at Tokyo Disney Sea, because they have a Fantasyland over at Tokyo Disneyland.
Right. So this is the Disney Sea version of that concept. So it would make more sense in DCA if they change that DCA theme to represent more of all of cinema, or basically Disney's Islands of Adventure. You know what I'm saying? I still think, and I know this would be crazy and they would never do it, but I would love to have the park change its name to the Wonderful Worlds of Disney. I've always loved that name. It harkens back to the nostalgia, and it really does become then an IP park, but it doesn't have a generic name. It ties very closely to Disney's past. I would love that. Will they do that? Probably not, but they could do that with Hollywood Studios. You can change that park's name to the Wonderful Worlds of Disney as well, you know?
Exactly.
But that name, it's very nostalgic, but it also is a celebration of all the studios of the Walt Disney Company. So I'd be kind of cool, but will they do it? Probably not. But
so whether like they do like a Fantasy Springs-esque type land with multiple IPs into DCA, would you go the route of how they did with at Tokyo where they utilized Frozen and Tangled, or would you utilize a whole nother set of different IP?
Yeah, personally, what I would do is I would make it a DCA thing and do what we've been talking about, a Latin Fantasy Springs. So you can have Encanto, Coco, and maybe like a little Three Caballeros area or something like that. Or, you know, I would have something to that effect. I like the concept of Fantasy Springs, but I would go in a different direction. I wouldn't necessarily do exactly what Tokyo did. If you're going to do that, if you're going to do the fairy tale angle like Tokyo did, I would prefer them to change DCA's theme and put it in DCA because of what I said earlier, where it seems a little redundant in Disneyland. It feels like two Fantasylands. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So
and then to Brickey's last statement, the fact that there's going to be a parking structure that's going to be bigger than both of the parks combined, that's going to hold over 15,000 vehicles. And wherever we see parking lots and cars parked now, it's prime real estate for theme parks. That's just wild to me.
Telling you, man, this is the biggest thing to happen to Disneyland Resort since 2001. It absolutely is. This is going to change a lot of stuff. It's exciting.
Experience. And that also includes the Toy Story parking lot. In the history of the growth patterns of the Disneyland Resort, there's one trend that is quite obvious. And this trend I would anticipate would be a part of the Disneyland Forward projects. And if history does indeed repeat itself, once this begins, we'll have a much clearer idea when Disneyland is moving forward with Disneyland Forward. This will be the test to know what's happening next and give us a great idea where we might anticipate future projects, because the map is going to open up once this space does. What could the future expansion of DCA have to do with Disneyland Forward? Well, there's something that jumps out at me right away, because if DCA is scheduled to get not only the Coco themed family boat ride, but also a truly ambitious Avatar project. It looks like it's going to be based off of the ride technology that we saw at Shanghai Disneyland with that truly amazing Pirates of the Caribbean attraction. Here's my question for you. Do both of these attractions fit inside the current footprint of DCA? Because I believe that one does, but it's debatable if both do. So for me, the big question is this. Will these attractions
believe
it or not, even though I watched this, I don't know how I missed that part, but I actually missed that part.
Okay, well, here's the thing, but we'll do a little predicting here. I think both fit. I think you can fit the Coco Dark Ride in there. You can finagle things and get it in there. It's just one attraction. You know what I'm saying? But Pandora as well. I mean, look, if he means fit it in the park as is without destroying anything that currently exists, no, it's impossible. You can't fit Pandora in DCA unless you destroy something.
Unless, I'm just speaking as a hypothetical. Unless if you were to take the long stretch of Hollywoodland right off the back of Buena Vista Street, and that becomes the little Mexican village, and then the backlot area becomes where the attraction is. Now, if they go that route, then Avatar would have to wait for Disneyland Forward, because Avatar you still need Disneyland Forward no matter what, but if you're just using the imprint of what's existing in the parks right now, if they utilized Coco for Hollywoodland, Pandora would have to wait for the symbol lot.
Yes, it would. Now, that's an interesting idea, George, that I never really considered. What if you took all of Hollywoodland and turned it into like a Mexican village or Mexican themed area? Because then it would make a lot of sense, right? Because then if you go down Buena Vista Street, you can make a left on like Olvera Street or something, right? And then now you're going into Olvera Street, and then it leads you up to like the Coco Dark Ride and things like that. That would be fascinating, man. And that whole area can be like a Coco like little land. Now, I love that idea, and that would be a great way to approach it. My only hesitation as to it actually happening is that tomorrow, never mentioned a land with Coco. It's always been just an attraction. So I doubt that. But man, that's a fantastic idea, brother.
And I think that's a very missed opportunity, because as we had talked about it many times, is as you had mentioned, even with the Fantasy Springs idea, tie the Coco attraction to a Hispanic Latin mini land, like
exactly
the food, the culture itself, the music. Like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, no, 100%. It makes total sense. That's fascinating. I'm so fascinated and curious as to how they reconfigure this park to fit this stuff in here. Let's listen to what he says. This is fascinating.
At a DCA, or will they be in an indication that Disneyland Forward is happening, where they can go over into the Simba parking lot and create a much larger entertainment experience for the DCA guests? Are we looking at possibly some of the first Disneyland Forward projects, but Disney's just not labeling them that way right now? And from everything that we're looking at today, we would definitely know that if one or both new announcements for DCA were to go in the Simba parking lot, that absolutely means that the eastern parking lot has got to get built. So not only is it our clear indicator of when Disneyland Forward will begin, but it will be our clear indicator on what we should anticipate for the level of a Avatar or Coco themed attraction coming into DCA. Because as we've broken down today, expansions always start with parking. Whether these new attractions go inside a DCA or they go over into the Simba parking lot, doesn't matter. Because when they show up, at least we'll get some new vibes. And you know I'm all about the vibes over the rides. Make sure you hit the link below if you want to support Hey BRICKEY and help me keep showing up 3 times each week and showing up with your beautiful BRICKEY blouse the next time you go to the theme parks. There's one more thing to consider in all of this. 2028 is when the Olympics show up in Los Angeles. Could a Coco themed boat ride, as well as a Mexican street fair inspired neighborhood around the attraction, could that be the kind of international offering that would bring people back to Disneyland that maybe end up here for the first time ever?
You know, a fascinating thing that he just mentioned, where he said the Coco Dark Ride, right, with a Mexican street fair sort of little area around it. Now that's fascinating, because that's not a land. That kind of reminds me of like what they have with Mission Breakout, the courtyard around it, right? You have that little courtyard around it that's all like Mission Breakout-y. I don't know how else to say it, but Mission Breakout-y, that little courtyard. But it's not a land, but it's a little area that kind of like puts you in the mood for the attraction. I'm curious if they do that with Coco, because I have real issues. What we're hearing from tomorrow is that this is a Pirates of the Caribbean style boat ride. Okay, that's pretty ambitious. You know what I'm saying? Even for today's standards. I mean, that's a very ambitious description for this Coco ride. And then to have that put into Pixar Pier, where you're walking through all these carnival rides, and then you turn the corner and you ride this elaborate dark ride, this elaborate boat ride, it feels weird to me. It feels very disjointed. I would much prefer there to be some sort of themed Mexican courtyard that leads you up to the attraction, as BRICKEY was saying. But we'll see. We'll see how they handle it, you know?
Yes, I agree with you, especially with Coco. It's like that movie with the beautiful animation, the music, the characters, the storyline. It would just be a shame to have a missed opportunity that you would just throw an attraction, a show building that has a very beautiful boat ride, you know, with awesome technology, probably like LED screens and lights and awesome audio animatronics, but to just have a show building and it's like, okay, here's your Coco ride, and have nothing surrounding it. That would be a shame.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right.
For the first time in a long time, when they come to Los Angeles to see the Olympics, Coco is scheduled to be that big shiny offering when the world is looking at Southern California. Does that make you think that this might be a big, glamorous, state-of-the-art attraction that might need a lot more space than what's currently available in the footprint of Disney's California Adventure? food for thought. And even though you maybe don't care about the Olympics coming to LA, could the expedited timeline pay off for fans where we see Disney be motivated to get this construction done in a much faster manner than everything else that we've seen post-pandemic? So with all of these various different elements in play.
Did he say the pandemic?
He said the pandemic.
Oh, I like that. That's good. I've always called it the pandy, but the pandemic, I like that a lot, actually.
We will definitely have an idea of what Disneyland and DCA's future looks like when we see what happens over on the eastern end of the Disneyland Resort. No parking garage. We can anticipate that at least Coco, that starts in 2026, will be built inside of DCA. But then that still leaves the question of Avatar, which Disney has not confirmed a location or a start date on. But if they do announce it and we don't see a parking garage announcement, it is safe to say all of that will be inside of DCA. And I think it would limit just what they could do with both of these attractions, forcing them into the small open spaces of Disney's California Adventure. Because don't forget, the idea with both of these projects is to expand the resort. So they don't want to take away an attraction to bring in a new attraction. That just gets you back to even. They want to put these in places where currently Disney guests are not enjoying DCA. So with the timeline of the Olympics, with the anticipation of Disneyland Forward, and with 2 new projects confirmed that will be happening at Disney California Adventure, it'll definitely be exciting times to see what happens and where it happens next. If you want to see where I believe and where the viewers of this channel believe Coco's going inside of DCA, make sure you watch this video right here. Thank you so much for showing up.
Yep, and like I said before, I'll be linking this very video at the very end of this video, so you can check out the video. You can watch, the whole video without, the interruptions, without the commentary. But if you aren't already, please subscribe to Brickey. He does phenomenal content. If you like what we do here at OG55, you will absolutely love what Brickey does. Brilliant content creator. Check him out. Subscribe to him. Support him. But yeah, overall thoughts, George. What do you think, brother?
Again, it's just speaking of like Brickey's content, I mean, he always knocks it out of the ballpark. As you said, he does phenomenal work, and it's great that we could actually now, call him a friend.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome. But everything that he has covered, again, I'm very optimistic. I have positive vibes with everything. I think no matter how you kind of slice the cake, I think, we're all going to get a nice, bountiful piece of it. So
everyone loves a piece of cake, George. Everyone loves a piece of cake. You know what I'm saying? It's awesome. But thank you so much, George, for joining me today. If you let everybody home know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George.
But for how long, we don't know. That's the question.
We don't know. That's the question.
A lot of people are jumping ship, and the Italiano and I might be one of them. I'm getting tired of all the trolls and the BS on there,
just
and
I might drama. It's just too much drama. We're not drama people.
I'd rather just walk, dude. I'd rather walk and handle my business on other platforms, and just no one's happy on X. Nobody, dude. No. Elon has destroyed this app. He completely destroyed it. Mm-hmm. It's become unusable. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not going to deactivate my account because I don't want anyone else using my name.
Same thing with me. Yeah, but I probably just won't use it. I
probably just won't use it and use other platforms and just kind of migrate over there. You know what I'm saying? Voting with your wallet, right? If you're not happy with some, you vote with your wallet. You go somewhere else. It's a beautiful thing. It really is.
It really is. But you can also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. Follow this man on social media. Make sure you check out Hey Brickey. And until the next time, peace.